So yeah, I'll just start. Hey guys, today we're going to be speaking about the Libra Project. I'm joined today by James Spence and Andrew Ralston from the Libra Project, as well as Kokila Alab from Carm Legal Consultants, who is a legal advisor to the project. Pleasure to have you with me here, guys. The floor is yours to speak about the Libra Project and everything that's happening, and it would be great to hear about the latest news going on with the ADGM listing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Khalid. I think Andrew and James, we should start with just talking about the Libra project as such, and then we talk about the battles that we're winning.
James, I think it should be best coming from yourself, being the co-founder.
Yeah, for sure. It's where do we start? It's been such a long story since we first founded the company in 2017. I think we should start with the original vision of the company, potentially. So when we founded the company, the founders got together and we had this idea that we wanted to positively impact the lives of 100 million people. So the founders are very experienced in business, and we looked at the strengths of each of the individual founders. And one of our key founders has been in the renewable energy space for a decade, and highlighted the challenges that the world was facing for the amount of people, 1.2 billion people without energy. And we took that as our core goal, that we were going to try and tackle that goal and give renewable energy and power to people in emerging markets in line with the United Nations goals. So not just creating renewable energy, but doing it in a way that's sustainable and doing it in a way that tackles many more of the UN goals across that journey.
That's great. And do you want to mention about when did you start here in ADGM and in the UAE? Like how you're based out, or what you've done in the United States and what you're doing here. And Libra, essentially, the main holdco sits in United Kingdom. And then we have the first, what we say, approvals for these digital securities were from SEC and then ADGM. So it would be nice, Andrew or James, if you could just mention about how did you go about it in US, and then I'll talk about what we did in UAE.
Yeah, I'm going to hand over to James again. I'll get more involved in the day-to-day discussion, but in terms of structurings, over to James again.
Sure. So when we first started, we started as a Libra Project Asset Management out of the UK, and that's really the operations company. So that company's goal is to go out and identify these renewable energy projects and to do the technical and the legal due diligence on these projects. And we then were looking for a mechanism to fund these. So initially we were going to open up a fund out of Luxembourg, and this was sort of back in 2017. We were looking to structure this traditional type of financial asset, but we saw a real problem that you had to have a fund manager in there, and fund managers are remunerated over the financial wealth that's being created in the underlying projects. So the fund managers tend to look at just the financials, not look at the impact that's being created. So we saw that as a bit of a conflict, and we wanted to try and get away from that fund structure. So we created two holdcos. And we did that in mind of potential tax implications that investors may have. So we opened up a holdco in the US, and we opened up one out of Abu Dhabi Global Markets. And the two holdcos are there. So investors in the US can keep their money in the US and not have to worry about sending the money overseas under US regulation. And the Wyoming structure on digital assets there is really quite very well advanced. So we opened up a Wyoming entity, and we structured a Regulation D506C out of Wyoming, and that's has a regulated FINRA broker-dealer involved in that offering, and that's live. And simultaneously, then we opened up a company in Abu Dhabi Global Markets, and Abu Dhabi is really a key position for us. The company, a lot of the teams based in Abu Dhabi. ADGM is central to the business operation between Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, between the two locations. But ADGM itself has got a very advanced regulatory framework around digital securities and digital assets. And it was very, the regulators there are really sort of helpful compared to most regulators in the world. They really want to embrace digital securities and make sure it's done right. So we've been working with those guys for the best part of since early 2019 to create this structure that we can then tokenize and have then offered as a digital asset out of ADGM. So both these have now been given the sign off, and so the SEC has given us the go ahead that we can move forwards there, and ADGM has listed us as a deemed digital asset or deemed digital security on their website. So that's given us the go ahead to then carry on with the exempt offering that we're doing out of ADGM. So both really a lot of technical stuff in there, but what it means is that we're regulatory compliant across 2 jurisdictions, and which no other company has actually been able to do to create this structure, all based on blockchain.
Yeah, I think the landmark achievement for the project has been to truly use and showcase the use of blockchain.
Yes.
So not just blockchain, just for what we're seeing, some of our clients or some of the projects, big ones, are using blockchain just for one purpose, and that's just for a better data management and better data storage. But when we saw in Libra, right from onboarding the clients, the transactions, the investments to come in, the investors, blockchain's been used through and throughout. So that's been a very landmark achievement for us. And yes, as James have pointed out, in our experience as Karan, we've seen ADGM as an absolute forthcoming regulator. From the time we submitted documents, the detailed discussions with them, so this is for the first time, I would say, a regulator has been very open to discussions and, guiding us through what needs to be done. So not just very robust regulations alone has led to the success of what we've achieved, but also the involvement of the team that has in particular worked with us on this. So right from, as we said, submitting the concept note to submitting the legal opinion, ADGM's been very, very hands-on. And that's, I think, the vision of the country, and ADGM is pretty much leading it. And not just, I would say, the country, but even in the region, they are seen as the regulator who are absolutely leading this space. So as we speak, in fact, I have just received 10 minutes back that even DFSA has launched their consultation paper this morning for digital securities. So that's really good to see. So ADGM started with it, then we had ESCA, Securities and Commodities Authorities, coming out with the law, and now even DIFC embracing it. I think it's very exciting times for us here. And also, it's not just the regulators, the support from the investors, the market in general has been very promising here. Yeah,
the timing now is ideal for us launching this into the market, and to have the alignment with ADGM and is fantastic.
And just adding to ESG, there's probably seen in the news a lot of things like greenwashing, which is a hot topic at a hot subject at the moment, where companies aren't really reporting exactly what's going on. So people are putting money into ESG investments, environmental social governance investments, and they don't really have a mechanism to report back to the investors exactly what's going on in the company. So what we've been working on using blockchain is to give that level of clarity within the company to how it's operating. So just as an example, so adding in IoT devices at source of a renewable energy project. So what does that mean? We have this Internet of Things device that we can put in at the actual project base that collects data of maybe energy being sold, energy being created, even the carbon, even the emissions of the project itself, the carbon offsets, and feed that data live back into blockchain, and then show that. So we've got a record going into blockchain, and at the same time showing that data live on our platform. So an investor can see exactly what their digital security ownership is doing in terms of its impact it's delivering at the project site. So when I talk about live reporting, if you look at someone like BP or Shell, they do 4 financial reports per year. So every quarter they release their figures. So, and they maybe do one environmental study on an annual basis, but by the time that's released, it's already out of date. So what we want to do as a company is to make this live reporting. And there's no other company in this space that has managed to get it live, but also with live reporting, but having blockchain underneath there. If the government turns around in 10 years' time and says, prove or show us that data that you've been collecting over the last 10 years. We've got that immutable ledger of data stored on blockchain that we can go back to them and say, this is the carbon offset, this is the amount of jobs we've created in your country, and this is the positive impact we're having. So, you know, it's all there, it's all transparent. And and then really that's why we want to have blockchain underneath the whole of the company, from the full end-to-end service of blockchain integration.
Absolutely, transparency is the key. You know, this is where we see this pretty much why this is a breakthrough technology, because an investor, a regulator, your shareholder, public at large can see where the project is heading, what is happening with their money. So, you know, the whole idea of how you pretty much in the traditional word could tamper with documents, it's pretty much restricted. So one of the key requirements that we are facing globally everywhere is that when it comes to now KYC or doing an AML check on your investors or your potential partners, it's now becoming mandatory for any business, whatever your size or whatever activity you would be. Using blockchain has made that a lot easier, and I think given a lot of comfort also to the regulators who are encouraging you to dwell more into these.
Yeah.
So with that, I think in Libra, I remember discussing the KYC bit quite in details with ADGM and saying that this is how we're going to make sure that the investors are protected. So that's a big thing that we're seeing, and UAE in general is promoting it quite aggressively.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
a lot of KYC that's being done, I see through onboarding platforms at the moment that doesn't go into enough detail. It doesn't cover, it asks some certain questions, but doesn't go into sort of maybe politically exempt persons and other things. So it's kind of just skimming the very top layer of KYC and AML, but it doesn't really dig deep. It doesn't ask for source of income. It doesn't ask for proof of where people are actually earning their money. It doesn't start digging around into questions of where this money's come from, how it's been earned. And really for us, that's really a key point. We want to know where, we're not being nosy into our clients' money or our investors' money, but we want to make sure that the money that goes into our projects, because these are projects that are there to promote social good and make change, that the money that comes in is all good money.
Yeah.
So and we want to make sure our investors are aligned with our vision of creating this social impact.
Yeah. It's absolutely any technology used for a greater impact and for better and bigger goals in life is always supported. And another key thing that we need to keep it in mind from a very legal and regulatory perspective, how ADGM or other regulators have looked at it is that the underlying law or the principles of law are pretty much the same for a security or a digital security. So all the regulator is saying is that we're okay with the use of technology, but whatever are the requirements for a security to be a traditional security, that those are to be, you know, those are to be fulfilled. There is no deviation from it. But the use of technology just makes it easier for them to look at it. And also currently in Libra Project, what we have is an exempt offer. So these are all private placement documents. So when we have looked at it, we've drafted it pretty much from a very traditional perspective, how you would look at securities in general. And that's the approach, that's the guidance we've got from ADGM. And then going forward, I am looking forward to many more projects like that to come in. And now with the DFSA also, so we'll have 3 financial regulators in the country, you know, being in the same space. So this just shows that UAE is going to be the destination for anybody who's looking at doing anything in the tokenization space. It's quite interesting for us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies out there who are who have fallen by the side because they lacked the corporate structure and the corporate governance, and tried to launch, you know, a digital offering without really the thought there. A lot of good ideas out there, but they didn't have the corporate structure, and maybe that sort of help from a legal counsel like Calm have really guided us to do. So there's been a lot of failings on that side, but when it comes from us, it's with ESG, the G bit is all about the governance and having that correct legal structuring in place before we even go to market and before we even start bringing on capital. And Karma has done a fantastic job on that. Maybe Kokila can just cover some of the documents that you've helped us put together.
Yes. So right from what the information memorandum, the private placement document, the subscription document should be like, we've looked at it, and fortunately, from the very beginning, Karma has always tried to create that bridge between traditional laws and the new technologies. So every time we've looked at a new technology project, we've always looked at it that how does it fit in the current laws and regulations of the country? The technology, the solutions that one comes up with could be groundbreaking, but pretty much we have the jurisprudence, we have the understanding, and we have the clarity in laws in pretty much all the countries. It's just that we have to see where it closely gets fit to it. And secondly, with the regulators also going in that direction, Karma has always advised the clients that you need to be very well organized. At the end of the day, this is a business. So corporate governance is the key element. Corporate structuring, knowing what your business is, how you want to plan it ahead, is the essential part of it. Technology makes it easier. Technology, yes, enhances the speed, the way things are done is a little different. But at the end of the day, let's not forget, it is a corporate entity. Libra Project using blockchain, but at the end of the day, it is a renewable energy project. So it has very traditional business, legal, regulatory understanding globally. One doesn't have to change that. So while, you know, we're seeing many projects, many clients, many queries are coming out to us for tokenization, they're a lot better now. Till about a year, 2 years back, people were still looking at security token offerings as a replacement for what we saw in the ICOs and quick money coming in from the investors and just an idea which is getting funded. But now when we talk about a security tokens or a digital securities, let's not forget, those are for legitimate, good understanding businesses. So as James put it, that they started this in 2017 and 2019, the whole course was set up. So a corporate structure was already thought of that this is how we're going to enter the market. This is how the company is going to acquire project. This is how the company is going to go and raise funding for it. And have that patience and the bandwidth to go through that journey. So a lot of time in Karm, we are seeing that clients are reaching out to us and they've heard about what's happening now with ADGM. They're very excited to see what Libra has done. And then the first question they ask me, how much time did it take? I'll be like, company, maybe 5 years, 2 years before they set up the holding company. They said, it shouldn't take that long. It's so easy on the technology. I said, now that's the interesting part. You want to go the securities route, you need to be prepared for it. That's fundamentally, we don't see it changing anytime soon. We, in fact, now are seeing in the last month and a half, clients who are coming to us and saying, oh, okay, so it is at the end of the day, a security which has been deemed, a digital security which has been deemed as a security. So then we go through the whole process with them and saying, it is going to be a journey. Are you ready for it? First, we need to fix the house, make sure. Corporate governance is the key element for any corporate to do well. To have the right shareholders, to have the right advisors working with you, be it your underwriters, your broker dealers, people helping you raise money, your tax consultants, your auditors, your lawyers, all need to work collectively. It's a great team effort. And we've been very lucky that the team that is there at Libra, both Andrew and James, they've been very hands-on to whatever we've suggested, discussed. It's a project that we will build together. So that's a mindset that we are now trying to see, which is a little shift from the whole crypto space to the tokenization space. Both are very different. But now, thankfully, we see ourselves that, we will be heading there soon, where clients will understand this basic fundamentals, the nuances of how a business should be run.
Mm-hmm. So. Absolutely.
I just wanted to touch on it. It seems like a massive project with so many moving elements. Other than the legal and regulatory aspect of it, what other facets were like sort of difficult and you found challenging to sort of implement and get to where you are now?
Maybe it might be a good time to bring up COVID, because it has had a delay aspect to the company's development. We went out and visited a number of projects over in Thailand and in the Philippines and places like this pre-COVID, where travel was easy. We can go and see the projects, do the technical due diligence in a very easy manner. 2020 obviously changed that, so it's been quite difficult for us to go and physically see the projects that we want to potentially acquire and do that technical survey. But what we have been doing is, where we've got staff already on the ground in the Philippines, we've kind of changed jurisdictions and allowed those staff to carry on looking at projects in the Philippines and parking some of the projects that we had in Thailand, and just speaking to the guys there saying, look, we can't take on these projects yet. We'll revisit these once we've got the freedom to travel. So projects have been sort of coming and going, but it certainly has sort of slowed us down in acquiring or not even purchasing projects, but certainly doing the technical due diligence on these projects. We'd like to be further ahead, but COVID is what it is. So we have as a business, be flexible and work around that. It has actually presented more opportunities where there's projects that haven't potentially been able to raise capital because they haven't been able to have inward investors going to see them. So we've been looking at some of these distressed assets and potentially looking to bring those on board onto our system as well. So COVID has had its positives and negative effects.
I'd say one other challenge has been, being a startup and still in the pre-revenue stage is resources as well. We all wear many hats within the organization. I mean, that's expected with any startup. So for us to effectively achieve what we have done to this point, which is effectively structure the company and get ourselves in the position where we can actually move forwards, that has been a challenge, but it's been a challenge that we've actually succeeded in. So now it's just a case of making the right connections and alignments to make us go on to the next stage of our journey, which is essentially execution and delivering on the business model. So this is what we've been prepared for. But to go back again to timing, we have had to be patient. So we couldn't start the push before we've had the approvals that we were waiting for. So it's almost like we've got a really good project and we want to make it move forward, but we've also got to take ourselves to just calm down, just relax before you can move forward. So when we did receive the good news a couple of weeks ago, that was really the only thing holding us back from actually moving forwards, and that was a real a moment of celebration, but also a weight off our shoulders, because there's a lot of emotional attachment to getting to that stage. And now we've achieved it, and now we're now ready. So we're now in that position where we can actually have a different type of conversation to investors and partners, because a month or 2 months ago it was all about vision, and the vision was even like the immediate vision. The immediate vision is this. We've now achieved that. Now it's a case of we need to get the backing that we need, ideally regionally as well. We are having regional discussions about Libra Project becoming backed regionally. But that aside, having the right backers to really move us forward and essentially leading by example. But we've got a fantastic opportunity, not only on the digital asset space, but also in the renewable energy space. You know, we're disrupting how you raise capital to acquire renewable energy plants. So I think we're at that stage at the moment where we've got quite a lot of observers just monitoring and seeing how we do. But you know, I'm very confident in our capability, you know, with the expertise on the renewable energy side, with the knowledge that we have on the digital side and also on the legal side, that we can lead by example. But what is really interesting, just going back to Kokila's point, there's always a first mover in any market, and we appear that we are one of perhaps the first mover in the sector that we work in. But it looks like if it takes on average 2 to 4 years to effectively replicate what we're doing, we might be leading the way for some time, which is exciting but quite daunting as well. But that being said, you know, we're very much open towards you know, collaborating with partners who can add value to what we're doing and vice versa.
Has there been like a lot of feedback from investors sort of looking at your project and looking at the sort of hands-on approach to investing, where there's a live feed of information to how projects are doing? Well, has there been any like feedback on that, or?
Yeah, James, you'll answer that, and perhaps
yeah, of course.
if you could allow me to share my screen, I'll bring up a slide and get James to talk through that.
Sure.
Yeah, so the feedback is positive, that the investors want to see the live data. With anything, they want proof of concept though. So it's always acquiring that first project, putting in those IoT devices and getting that live data coming through. But we have to acquire the first project first. We can't just make this live data appear without getting those data feeds. So the platforms there, the underlying, the ITA, the devices that we'll be using to plug in that source, they've been around for years. You know, there's nothing new that we've developed. What we're doing is creating linking all these systems together to give this live data feed, and we want to make it into an app, which isn't so people can look at it from their mobile devices. So they have this sort of live commitment, this live communication. One of the key things we're doing within the company is really making this community of investors that have a say in how the projects are developed. So within the system that we've created, there's a vote mechanism. Yeah. And what that means is that as an operational company, we go out and we find these renewable energy projects. We do the technical and the legal due diligence. We then get that verified by a third-party company. And once that's all verified, we then present that project to the two holdcos for the investors to vote on whether or not their money is used to adopt that project. So most companies will just buy projects and do what they want and have the CEOs and the board of directors make the decisions, and you trust that they are making the right decisions on your behalf. Well, we're going to give full disclosure of everything we're doing and get our investors to vote on which projects we acquire and how much impact we make. So as our projects get released, energy is just the first concept. So renewable energy is, when we take on a project, renewable energy is the first thing we're going to look at. But then once the project is up and running and we have the renewable energy then working, we can then look at other things around there. So we've built a foundation as well. So 10% of our shares are owned in a foundation, which will receive the dividends from the projects at the same level as the investors receive the dividends from the projects. So that foundation is going to start accruing money inside of it. Now, as we start getting that money there and the renewable energy projects live, we'll then start to look at things like water supply, healthcare, education, and other goals that we can tackle on those project facilities. So once you have energy, it's then easy to create clean, drinkable water. Once you have water, and energy, then we can then look at food, aquaponics and hydroponics. So we can start challenging multiple United Nations goals on each renewable energy project. So energy is the first key though.
Khaled, just going back to your earlier question and also coinciding with this as well, it does go back to a challenge, especially when talking to investors, because we do not yet have a proof of concept. We can only explain what the technology will do, and that is a challenge when you're trying to sell an investment opportunity, because we're not an idea. We're far beyond an idea, but we haven't yet got a proof of concept. So the types of discussions we're having at the moment with, let's say, strong caliber investors is we give them an indication of the initial capital that we're looking for in order to make our first acquisitions, which then becomes the POC. And for myself, when that data is live and accessible, then the opportunity for us is all about scaling, really, because once the evidence is there, then there isn't any doubt that the data speaks for itself, and at that point we can really scale. And the size of the market that we're operating in, there's unlimited scaling opportunities. But we're at that stage where we've got to go one foot in the other, and really show capability first. But that's where we're at, and I think this year, based on our fundraising activities, which immediately coincide with the acquisitions that we'll be making. This year is all about execution, operations, proving concepts. And then after 1 year, I don't know, I'm not sure if we were touching this earlier, but at the moment we're raising capital through professional accredited investors. But it is our goal to make this publicly available. So, leading up to the time when we can actually go public, we'll be leveraging off the SDGs, most notably number 17, which is partnerships, forming enterprise level partnerships to really get awareness in the market and attract the retail customers to download the app and start using it. And then by doing so, automatically generating demand, but also liquidity in the market. And for anyone who's familiar with the liquidity challenges that exist in the digital securities at the moment, with our strategy, we do address that, because as things currently stand, there is a lack of liquidity. But by way of getting the retail global community to have access to this, one, we give them a product which we believe would resonate well with them, but also from the liquidity standpoint, it addresses that issue as well.
That's very interesting. And from the projects themselves, like how excited are they to sort of work with the Libra project? Because it's essentially changing the game for them as well in the way they raise funding.
Yeah, well, so the projects themselves we will take. They are traditional renewable energy assets. Energy projects, many of them are live, and we will use that money to acquire them, and they will become the operations and management company that manage those projects. It's important for us to do that because we have to guide and oversee the impact that's being created for those projects. So where we become the O&M company out of the UK office, and that's what the UK that's the relevance of the UK company. It becomes that management company and takes them from assets that may not be up to standard at the moment. Some of the assets we're looking at are only operational to sort of 45% capacity. We'll use the investors' capital to go in. We'll take that up to maybe 90% capacity and build in sort of programmed maintenance schedules and other things that a lot of these projects in Asia that were sort of built maybe 10 years ago under government grants, where the government was giving out these big bonuses to get people to go and build renewable energy projects, but they were farmers and others, and maybe rice workers and other things that got into the renewable energy space, but didn't have the technical expertise to keep these long operating assets. So we're coming in and giving them the needed capital to upscale this, taking the projects off their hands and bringing on fresh staff and training them to a standard where they have the prescribed maintenance schedules put in there, and actually making them work more efficiently than they currently are. So, yeah.
And Khaled, just adding to that as well, it's, I wouldn't say excited is the right word in our case, because at the end of the day, we are a buyer. We're a buyer in the market that the seller's looking to sell to. But what makes us more capable is we'll be competing predominantly with local buyers in those local countries. And because we're positioning ourselves predominantly within the small to medium scale of size of plants, we don't have a great deal of a competition. But again, at the same time, we aren't necessarily competition, because we're still open to collaborate with those with entities, because essentially what we created is a way to raise capital by way of buying equity in our company, which is then deployed into the countries that we're looking to support. So we're not coming in with any form of competition, but with the structure that we've actually designed, in comparison to the conventional ways of raising capital, where sourcing capital from banks is becoming harder and harder, higher rates of interest and so on, there needs to be an alternative solution, and that's essentially what we are. So we can actually help sellers who really need to get their assets off their books, because they don't have the skill set that James touched on, that they're hemorrhaging money because the plants aren't operating, they're not generating profit, and in some cases of the discussions we're having with owners, we're having conversations directly with the banks who have taken on the debt. So aside from capital, an underperforming asset isn't good, period, because it's not generating energy for the local community, it's not generating jobs, it's putting owners in financial distress, and obviously the banks aren't overly happy either. So yes, we can get very good opportunities, but really everything we're geared towards is actually improving the whole ecosystem. So there is clean energy being produced, there is revenue and profits being generated, people are getting jobs and so on. So the more I every day that passes in Libra Project, the more passionate I become, because I generally see real life use cases for the structure that we've adopted to allow deployment of capital, which you could argue now is far easier through our method than through the conventional methods.
Yeah, I also saw on your website actually that you have a sort of ticker to the years it will take for the temperature of the world to increase by like 1 degree or 2 degrees, and it really shows the urgency of needing to sort of change the world with renewable energy, and it seems like you guys are extremely passionate about doing so. I also just wanted to touch back on you guys were mentioning that ADGM were so easy to work with, and through guiding you along the entire process. Why do you think like the structure of the UAE and the Middle East is so accommodating to emerging technologies?
UAE has always been the leader in this. So I've always believed, like I give this example, that 17 years back when I had come to this country, I was just out of law school, and I was very mesmerized and amazed to see the vision of the entire country. And at that time, reading about a book by Sheikh Zayed to see what he dreamt of the country. So with that vision, be it making it a real estate hub, a tourism hub, going ahead in 2016 and coming out with the blockchain policy and announcing that by 2020 we'll be a blockchain nation, where most of the people around the world were still trying to understand what is a Bitcoin, which is still, but going ahead into the depth of it, this is how UAE has always placed itself. So I would like to say it's not surprising that UAE is taking the lead in the whole technology space. Arabs to Mars is not a small thing, what a small country like UAE has achieved in a very short span. We are a new nation. We've got a very young population. And also what I see in the last, especially half a decade, is an immense knowledge transfer that is happening in the country, where it's no longer just being seen as the investment place or a trader's hub or an oil place, but seeing it that how do we increase our knowledge? How do we retain the people who are already here contributing to the economy and provide them that entire infrastructure initially, and now the word ecosystem. So how these technology companies like the Libra or the other technology projects that we're seeing, like what getting listed on a NASDAQ, getting funded, is happening only because these companies have got that confidence in the country to grow. So when a regulator supports you, when a government's vision works for you, and the market is interested in investing you, like you don't need anything else. So that's where we see that UAE is pretty much leading it. Like I remember the first event by Smart Dubai or the Future Blockchain Summit way back, and seeing the type of projects that came and showcased here, interested in talking about. So it was not just for a fundraise to come and look for investment, but also to see how do we bring these projects to UAE. And UAE has been very, very quick in adapting to the new technologies. That's what we've seen in our journey here.
Excellent.
And the whole of the UAE, certainly with ADGM, their regulatory framework is outstanding and very easy to understand. The language it's put in. If ever you've worked with some of the US language with the SEC, it's quite complex just trying to read their documents. But with ADGM, it's very simple, it's easy to understand. So the digital securities is just one small part of what we're looking to do at ADGM. We're also looking to potentially, as we acquire these renewable energy projects, looking at maybe the special purpose vehicles that we use to do that, how we can structure those through ADGM. And when we're looking at a debt raise, also we're going to be looking at whether or not we raise a sukuk or a green bond and launch that through ADGM. And ADGM is very supportive in the fact that their vision is about sustainability, and they want to be part of a sustainable finance and that finance ecosystem that makes a positive impact on the planet. And that's 100% in line with what we're trying to achieve as a company. Everything we do, what we look at is this going to have a positive impact on humanity? And if it has that positive social environmental impact, then we go with it. If there's anything negative in there, then we say, is there a better way to make more impact? And ADGM have set the sort of perfect legal, regulatory, financial structure that's in harmony with what we're doing. It's just a perfect match. We're very lucky to have them there.
Oh, great. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak to you guys about the Libra project and touch up on all the things you guys have been doing, especially from the legal and regulatory side as well. Is there any final words you'd like to give?
Just will say that the market is right, the timing is right, the law is supporting. As Andrew said, the timing-wise, it's perfect timing. So we look forward to many more such great projects, and we're quite excited what Libra has achieved so far and what their plans is, and we'll always be there to work on such projects. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I just want to add and just say how fantastic CALM have been in getting us to this point, and not just and the learning and the education I've had from them, it has been refreshing. The legal work and that they've been doing from us has been outstanding. So thank you to CALM as well for all your input.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. As we said, that for us, this is very passionately driven project. We're quite proud to be working with this team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, guys. It's been great speaking to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.